Good evening, Dhamma friends. Wish you the blessings of the Noble Triple Gem for a happy and peaceful evening. It's a great pleasure to be with this Saturday evening Sutta study class. I think this is after 2 months break. We come together to study the Dhamma in the discourses and enrich our mind on the basis of the Buddha's teaching. So let me welcome you with wholesome thought in mind, and I wish you the great energy to learn the Dhamma. The Dhamma that we discuss is a support for your practice, and I believe you would be able to enrich your mind more than ever on the teachings of the Buddha, and also help others with the teaching as you learn. With that wholesome thought in mind, I'm going to begin today's class by paying homage to the Buddha by reciting Namo Tassa 3 times in Pali and also in English. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Homage to the Sublime One, the Worthy One, the Fully Enlightened One. Homage to the Sublime One, the Worthy One, the Fully Enlightened One. Homage to the Sublime One, the Worthy One, the Fully Enlightened One. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So it's a great pleasure to discuss the Dhamma with you. Many of you engage with the related Dhamma discussion on your own with your friends, sometimes reading books, and suttas help you continue your practice. I know some of you are well aware of those discourses from each Nikaya, so that it was not a break for you. Actually, there are no breaks in our life with the Dhamma. Each moment is a given moment for us to be mindful and also to practice other qualities of the Dhamma, so that you, I believe, have been practicing Dhamma during the 2 months period which I was not at the temple. Anyhow, this is supporting me as a monk, because when you teach the Dhamma in a way, it's not teaching, it's sharing Dhamma. It helps you strengthen your knowledge and experience. So that I value this Sutta study class, and of course you too get the opportunity to share your knowledge, and there are others who get the knowledge of the Dhamma for the first time, so that this is a meaningful discussion. Today's Sutta I selected is the first discourse of the Buddha. As many of you know very well, that is the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the setting in motion the wheel of the Dhamma. The other way around, I was mentioning it in the email. Anyway, it is the first discourse of the Buddha to inform the world that I have attained full enlightenment, and this is what I understood. So Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta is therefore a remarkable discourse of the Buddha And from the first discourse of the Buddha to the last word of the Buddha, what he uttered was not controversial. They are all applicable, and whoever apply that Dhamma can bring their mind into peace and happiness. So that the Buddha's mission was so successful because he was setting in motion the wheel of the Dhamma. From that day, here, it's called Asala Full Moon Day, which is coming very soon. The month of July is therefore significant for us because of this discourse Buddha delivered. I know that many of you listen to this discourse, many versions of the discourse, many times in your life, so that for some people there are no any significant new information to be given. However, it is important for us to begin our Sutta studies after 2.5 months with the first discourse of the Buddha, and it's related to the month, so that we would be doing well after this discourse in this week. If I mention you the exact place of the discourse in the entire Tripitaka, you would remember it. It is not in Majjhima Nikaya, it is not in the Digha Nikaya, it is in Samyutta Nikaya, the last section called Mahavagga. In Samyutta Nikaya, you have a different section, and the big section called Mahavagga, you find this discourse. Before we go into the details of the discourse, I just want to tell you about the background of it. And for the background, you may read Arya Pariyesana Sutta and Mahasatchika Sutta in Majjhima Nikaya, the middle and discourses of the Buddha. There the Buddha himself talk about the way he moved forward to deliver his first discourse. As if you remember the chronology of the Buddha's life, you all know that the Buddha was in Gaya on the full moon day of Vesak, and he attained enlightenment on the full moon day of Vesak. After 2 months of reflection on the Dhamma, he was in a type of curiosity. To whom should I explain the Dhamma? In the Arya Pariyesana Sutta and Mahasatchika Sutta, it is said that he was thinking about whether to tell this Dhamma because it is not discernible by a normal experience or knowledge. So that he was thinking whether I would experience tiredness of telling this Dhamma to the world, which sensual pleasures is the mainstream of living. Then, having known his intention, the Buddha's intention, the head of the Brahma realm came to the Buddha and invited for the Dhamma sermons, for the discovery of the Dhamma for people. It is said in the discourses like Arya Pariyesana that the Brahma Sahampati informed the Buddha that there are people who have less attachment or craving, or in other words, there are some people who have keen wisdom, who develops their faculties, so that little help may show them the path of enlightenment, so that please come out and explain the Dhamma out of compassion for the world. If the Buddhas do not tell the Dhamma, the world would be a very bad place, very dangerous place, according to Brahma Sampati. I think, and many of us have discussed this before, that the Buddha waited for somebody in high esteem could come and invite him to do the Dhamma sermons, the first Dhamma sermon. So there would be many interpretations like that. Anyway, it happens on the full moon day of Asala, before he moved forward from Buddhagaya to Isipatana, he was looking at to whom should I explain this Dhamma first. It is said in Arya Pariyesana and Mahasatchika Sutta that he was checking with the Alara Kalama and Uddakarama Putta to deliver the Dhamma, because they were very first teach, very talented, very skillful teachers of the Bodhisattva Gautama. But when he thought about it, that there was a deity who knows about the Buddha's mind, and came and informed the Buddha that they both of them passed away very recently. Alar Kalama passed away a week ago of this incident, and then the Uddakaramputra passed away previous night. So if they were meritorious enough to stay and listen to the Buddha, they could have attained full enlightenment soon, because they were very intelligent. They were very highly developed people in the spirituality according to Buddha's intention. However, now the Buddha was thinking about who could listen to this and understand the Dhamma without any worry. Then he found out that the 5 ascetics who helped him during his self-mortification, so they were the people, they are the people who could understand. And then he, from his psychic power, knew that they were staying at Isipatana Park in Varanasi, so that the Buddha started going towards the Isipatana Park in Benares. Today it's called Benares. Then that's how the background story tells about the Buddha's move towards the first discourse. And there are other important incidents in Arya Pariyesana Sutta and Mahasatchika Sutta, which I do not tell it now, because we need to understand first Dhamma discourse of the Buddha in details. So then this Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta is not only telling the world that the Four Noble Truths is the main teachings of the Buddha, it also shows the world that a Buddha appeared to the world, because the society in 6th century BC was talking about a person called Buddha, or title called Buddha. It is a title. It is being talked about in that society for a long time. Even in Brahmanic teaching, in Hindu tradition, they were talking about a person called Buddha, so that the Buddha's nature was not specifically unknown to people. It was known to many people, so that this discourse is the revelation to the society that the Buddha appeared to the world. And this discourse also make sure to the world that the first and the second jewel started because Buddha appeared on full moon day of May, and the Dhamma and also Sangha out of triple gem appeared to the world, or started to the world by this discourse. So that the first discourse is really significant by those facts, in addition to the revealing of Four Noble Truths. So let me read the discourse so that we could get into discussion immediately. As you know, the Venerable Ananda said that he heard about this discourse from the Buddha, and the Buddha was dwelling in Varanasi in the deer park at Isipatana. There the Buddha addressed the bhikkhus, 5 bhikkhus. So he said at the very beginning that bhikkhus, these 2 extremes should not be followed by one who has gone forth into homelessness. Pabbajitena, those who have ordained as bhikkhus and bhikkhunis should not follow, should not have these two extreme. What are the two extreme? Attakilamatana yoga and also Kamasukallikana yoga. In English, it's called the pursuit of sensual pleasure in sensual pleasures, which is low, vulgar, and way of worldly, ignoble, unbeneficial. So the sensual pleasure, indulge in sensual pleasure is really, really negative for any means in the teachings of the Buddha. And those who have gone forth, namely bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, should not follow this if they wish to achieve their spiritual goal. It is unbeneficial. And the second one that is Attakilamatana yoga, the pursuit of self-mortification, which is painful, ignoble, unbeneficial. If you read the discourse carefully, the Buddha used more words to explain the first one than the second one. Why? So let me read it again. The pursuit of sensual pleasure, sensual happiness in sensual pleasure, which is low, vulgar, the way of worldlings, ignoble, unbeneficial. So 5 terms are being used to explain the indulge in sensual pleasures or sensual happiness. And then pursuit of self-mortification, which is painful, ignoble, and unbeneficial. Only 3 terms are used for self-mortification. The very reason I accept is that sensual pleasure is more dangerous than the torture to this body, because with sensual pleasures you cultivate all kinds of unwholesomeness. But with the idea of giving some torture to this body doesn't make any sense with sensual pleasure, which is very dangerous. But it is also a belief that there is a self, and you torture this body to burn the self down so that you are free from suffering. It is also not a way for bhikkhu and bhikkhuni to find salvation. But what is mostly dangerous is the first one. If you compare both two extremes. Anyway, there are 2 extremes. That's the point. So having practiced these 2 extremes by the Bodhisattva in the training period, he understood that nothing is working for anyone in search of truth. As the Prince Siddhartha, he had all kind of facilities. It is said in Mahasatchaka Sutta that he had 3 palaces with all kinds of luxurious things such as musical instruments, musicians, dancers, and all kinds of entertainments. He understood that it is not peaceful. It is not giving him enough satisfaction. Then he moved to ascetic life at the age of 26, and he went on very rigorous practices in the forest with teachers, without teachers, and nobody can do that up to that level according to his own words. So that he found that giving torture to this body in seeking truth or freedom from suffering does not work. So therefore he had enough experience on both extremes, so that he tells now that these 2 extremes are not working. Why? Because he had practiced the middle path and found the truth of life or the freedom of suffering, so that now he is in a position to tell that these 2 extremes are not working. One of the questions I was asked by a person is that, Bhante, do we today have these 2 extremes because some people do have sensual pleasures very much in their life, and some do not eat, do not sleep well, some do not uh, follow their normal life in terms of practicing salvation. So the person asked the question whether two extreme are still existing in the world. The simple answer is yes. Even some Buddhists may have these two extreme, depending on their way of understand. If you think that this life is for uh, entertainment, or your life is a gifted one, so that we should entertain our senses all the time, so it would be an extreme. And some people believe that giving happiness or sensual pleasures to this life is not good, so that we should not see things from eyes, we should not let other senses enjoy as it is, so that we should not eat well, we should give some torture to, could be. But uh, but at the time of the Buddha in 6th century BC, there is a uh, remarkable division in the society, that some people went to forest and practiced self-mortification, and there were many people who believed nothing but sensual pleasure is the thing, that God created this life, so that why not you enjoy this life as it is. So we could see both extreme in that society, and even today, if you look at the society carefully with the Buddha's teaching. Yes, however, those who apply the Dhamma still, have the sensual pleasures as a hindrance, as a craving, but it does not mean that they have extreme on the extreme level of it. You may have hindrance, kama chanda, and sensual pleasure as a nature of your life, but it may not counted as extreme. Okay, so that is an additional information. Let's get into the discourse. Having said these two extreme in details, the Buddha explained that the Tathagata has awakened to the middle way, which gives rise to vision, which gives rise to knowledge, which leads to peace, the direct knowledge, to enlightenment, and to Nibbana. So the Buddha's direct approach to the truth is very important here. Having clearly said both extreme in details, now he is telling that I have found, Tathagata is the word, one of the word he used for himself. He said, I have found the middle way, which is noble, which is giving us vision, knowledge, direct knowledge, enlightenment, what we call nirvana. So I am here to tell it to you. But according to Mahasachaka or Aryapariyesana Sutta, the 5 bhikkhus did not accept the fact that he attained full enlightenment by first appearance, and also some questions, because they strongly believed the idea of self-mortification is the way for enlightenment. But Buddha, for them, the ascetic Gautama came with full-fledged, beautiful life. They thought that he had failed from self-mortification, so that now he is coming telling something untrue. But the very point that the 5 bhikkhus turn into attention towards the Buddha is that when the Buddha said that I have never told you a lie, I have never told you something I didn't do. Do you remember whether I have told you something I never said, as I said? So that the 5 bhikkhus, turn into right attention that, okay, ascetic Gautama, even as a Prince Siddhartha, never told a lie, never told untruth. So now, therefore, he may be telling the truth. Then only the 5 bhikkhus started listening to the Buddha. So it is not here in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, but elsewhere we can find it. So what bhikkhus is the middle way. As you know, the middle way, as said by the Buddha here, is the way to vision, right knowledge, right experience, and enlightenment and nirvana. It consists with 8 factors. Middle way is called Noble Eightfold Path, Majjhima Patipada. Some people still understand Majjhima Patipada is the middle approach, middle, teaching between 2 extremes. No. If you get the word meaning, you might be, stuck with that idea, because 2 extremes are are there, and middle path would be the half or some part of those 2 extremes. No, I have found such people. That's why I'm telling you that the middle path is not a part of those 2, but it is totally away from these 2 extremes. So the very word the Buddha used right after Majjhima Patipada is Arya Attangika Magga, the Noble Eightfold Path, which means when somebody practices the noble the quality 8 qualities, the person becomes noble. Therefore, the 8 principles are noble, and it is universal too. So that the Buddha practice it, Buddha found it. Actually, what I think, why the Buddha struggles so much in the 6 years of self-mortification to find this truth, though, because it is said in many sources that he was ready to attain full enlightenment with all kinds of practices in previous lives. Then why he was struggling? Actually, maybe that the Bodhisattva wanted to test all the existing techniques for enlightenment, mostly the self-mortification, because he indulge in sensual pleasures was not accepted as a religious technique or for enlightenment at the time, though some people did it. But self-mortification was the emerging tradition at the time of the Buddha, even before the Buddha, for for enlightenment, for salvation. So he tested, he wanted to put into practice to see whether it is working. So then he found that it was not working, and middle path, the path he found for the peace and happiness, and he mastered on that. In Arya Pariyesana Sutta, there is a beautiful stanza. Aparuta tesang amatassa dwara ye sotavanto pamunchantu saddha. Vihinsa sanyi pagunang basing dhammang panitang manujesu brahme. When the Sahamprati Mahabrahma came and invited the Buddha to deliver the Dhamma as he found it, he thought that first I thought not to explain it, but now because the Dhamma that I understood is so deep, but I now explain it to people who have Shraddha on it. They may get it. In the Arya Pariyesana Sutta, this stanza tells us the people who have confidence on the Buddha, on the teaching he utters, could only understand this Dhamma. In other words, those who do not believe on the Buddha may not be able to understand this Dhamma. That's why the Buddha tried very much to convince the 5 bhikkhus that I have attained to enlightenment, and have I told you any lie in the fast? Have I done something wrong in searching of truth with you? And have I frankly practice anything I did with you. So that kind of statement made the 5 bhikkhus confidence on the Buddha. Otherwise, it is not easy to understand. Even today, if we do not have confidence on the teaching of the Buddha and through the teaching of the Buddha about the Buddha, I'm not telling that anybody can get into even jhana. So you have to believe on what you are practicing so that you could be able to understand. Let me remind you another place of this Shraddha. It is the time that Bodhisattva was with Alarakalam and Udakarama when the Bodhisattva knew that Alarakalam has achieved the Akinchanyayatana, the sphere of nothingness, as his highest, what the Bodhisattva thought, the Alarakalam had Shraddha Virya Sati Samadhi Panya, the confidence, the perseverance, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom with regard to Akinchanyayatana. That's why he achieved that level. And I too have those 5 things about his teaching so that I may be able to attain. So when he talked about Uddakaramputra, the same thing he uttered. So the point here is that Shraddha, the confidence on the things you do, is very important. If you have no confidence on meditation, you are not going to improve your meditation skills. If you have no confidence on anything in the teaching, you are not going to develop it. If, for example, in normal settings of our life, if we have no confidence on our teachers, our fellow people, or whatever we apply in normal society, we are not going to get the full of anything. So we have to have that confidence on training on what we are doing so that you are going to get what you want. So in the Pariyapariyasana Sutta, in this stanza of the Sutta, the Buddha said, I'm going to unfold the deep teaching of this wholesome Dhamma, and people may get it if they have Shraddha on it. The very word Pamunchantu Saddha. So middle path is the discovery of the Buddha, and it is the training principles he had in his whole life to understand the Four Noble Truths. If you look at we found the Four Noble Truths in the teaching. If you look at the Four Noble Truths, the 4th one is very, very important because it has the Noble Eightfold Path, it has the middle path, and when you follow the middle path, you are going to get the first Noble Truth fully, and the second Noble Truth, and also the third Noble Truth. So that one has to station on the 4th Noble Truth in order to get the maximum out of this Dhamma. So the Buddha here tells the middle path which I found is such: right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, and right mindfulness, and finally right concentration. So these are the middle path. The bhikkhus, this is the middle way awakened to by the Tathagata, which gives rise to vision, which gives rise to knowledge, which leads to peace, to direct knowledge, to enlightenment and nirvana. So it is very clear that he practiced the Noble Eightfold Path for his enlightenment and completed his training. Now, bhikkhus, what is the noble truth of suffering? Having explained the Noble Eightfold Path in short, he's explaining the Four Noble Truths in details. As you know, the Dukkha Ariya Satya in Pali. Why we say Ariya Satya for Dukkha and dukkha samudaya and dukkha nirodha and dukkha nirodhagamini patipada. Why we call it noble truth? There would be many interpretations. One is the suffering become noble just because it is understood by a person and understood by an individual, so that he becomes noble. And it is also universal truth. The suffering the Buddha talks about in the first noble truth is not relevant only to human, it is relevant to all kinds of living beings, from lowest to the highest, from here to there. And in living beings, we can see the suffering as the Buddha explained in the first noble truth. And it is not discernible by normal experience. Therefore, it is the Arya Satya also, because we see people die, we see people get sick, and we experience all kinds of changes in the physical body and mind. However, we do not feel that this life is a problem. When only people understand that there is escape from this suffering, whole mass of suffering, so that this should be understood clearly as it is, then that's how it becomes a noble truth for individuals. So there may be other interpretations why these words are used by the Buddha, Arya Satya. So you can add if I miss anything. So Buddha explained the first noble truth. I'm not going to tell it to you in details because you, in my understanding, you know them. And the second noble truth, because this is the second the noble truth of origin of suffering. There you see kama tanha, bhava tanha, vibhava tanha, craving which leads to renewed existence, accompanied by delight and lust, seeking delight here and there, and that is craving for sensual pleasures, craving for existence, and craving for extermination. So the origin of suffering is within, and it is called tanha or craving. And tanha is explained in Maha Satipatthana Sutta, mindfulness on four foundation, body, mind, and feeling, and Dhamma. The Satipatthana as sixfold: Rupa Tanha, Sabda Tanha, Gandha Tanha, Rasa Tanha, Pottabha Tanha, and so forth. So Tanha is arising, according to that explanation, in the Salayatana, in six senses, when the process of mind making happens. So Tanha is arising when necessary conditions come into existence. So Tanha is therefore the main cause of suffering, and it is being explained in three ways: Kama Tanha, craving for sensory experiences, craving for sensual pleasures, and then craving for existence. We like to exist, we like to be a part of those sensory experiences. In other words, we like what we see, what we hear, what we sense, what we cognize, and we want to keep that level of sensual pleasures without living on it. In other words, we need to have the sensual pleasures over and over. We don't want to change it. That is, in my understanding, the desire for existence. With that, we have a desire for becoming human, becoming divine beings. We desire to be a monk. We desire to be a doctor, lawyer, a president, prime minister, a teacher. We desire to be a father. And we have those desires in mind, expectations, and we live on that. Some people live on different hopes for so long, so that they have been having this particular craving in their mind. And what about vibhava tanha? desire for, according to this translation, extermination. Loose translation is the desire for dying, some commit suicide because of various problems. And some people translate this is the examples of vibhavatana. But when you come to subtle level of this craving, it is not such simple. It is the desire for non-existing something you don't like. For example, we like everything to be perfect. However, because the theory of impermanence is working in us physically and mentally, so that what we have thought of never going into the level we expect. So they change, so that we experience suffering, we experience unsatisfaction, we experience displeasure. We do not want it. We crave for not to have it. We crave for not to experience any suffering, which is the desire for extermination, vibhava tanha. So Buddha clearly mentioned these three tanha in the second noble truth here in Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, and it is very clear. And then he goes to the third one. The suffering is there, and the origin of suffering is found also, and the cessation of suffering is the third noble truth, which arose vision in me, knowledge, direct experience, enlightenment, and nirvana. And it means that very reason for craving could be ended. Not, you are targeting not the craving that is existing, but the causes of that suffering. So suffering should be treated immediately, but unless you treat the causes of suffering, there is no way for you to take the suffering out. So that in the third noble truth, we talks about the cessation of the causes of suffering and the suffering itself. To do that, one has to understand the dependent origination. In the meantime, he or she apply the fourth noble truth as we discussed the Noble Eightfold Path. So having said the four noble truth in details by the Buddha, he is telling in the discourse that I never claim that I am the Tathagata or the Buddha until I fully understood these four noble truths. I never claim that I am the Buddha until I understood, until I completed the understanding of the four noble truths in 3 phases and 12 ways. Tiparivattvang, dvadasakarang, yatabhutang, jnanadasanang. Those are the Pali terms he used. That is found in the later part of the discourse. You are invited to read the full discourse later on if you haven't read it. So you found that I never claim that I am the Buddha until I complete the four noble truths in 3 phases and 12 ways. So one truth is understood in 3 levels. First one is that this is the noble truth of suffering. By saying that, he meant that this aging, birth, first one birth, then decay, then aging, then death, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and all kinds of mass of suffering. In short, the 5 aggregates of clinging, they are not only relevant to me, not only relevant to low caste people, high caste people. It is relevant to all human beings. Not only that, it is relevant to beings visible and invisible, and from lowest to the highest, and so forth, divine, celestial and terrestrial, and so on. So that this is the truth of each living beings. So having, that is the first phase. And the second phase is parinyayang parinyata. The parinyaya. This has to be understood. First, this is the noble truth of suffering, and that has to be understood. And parinyatang, I fully understood the suffering as it is. So these are the three phases. Like that, we go to the second noble truth. This is the origin of suffering, the first phase. Without any doubt, without any lapses, shortcoming, he fully scan and search on the origin of suffering. There was no doubt for him that sensual pleasure is the problem, first problem, and bhavatanha, the desire for existence, and desire for non-existent. These are the three categories of craving, and craving as one is the origin of suffering. So then it has to be removed, and I removed it. Then he went on to the third noble truth, which is the cessation of suffering. He fully he fully understood the third noble truth, and it has to be developed, cultivated, and and achieved, and then he completed that. And when he went to the fourth one, it has to be understand as it is, and then practice up to the highest extent. If and if anyone wants to understand the enlightenment, it has to be fully developed, and he said that I developed it. So when he claimed his Tathagataship or the Buddhahood, he told the 5 bhikkhus that I practiced the middle way or the Noble Eightfold Path and completed the Four Noble Truths through that in 3 phases and 12 ways. So it is remarkable because the Buddha did not come to any person without completing his understanding on Four Noble Truths. So once he got it, he claimed himself that I got it. So that assurance was there. One of our friends in this class emailed me another sutta where the Buddha talks about the 5 aggregates of clinging, and understanding the 5 aggregate of clinging is same as the full understanding on the noble truth of suffering. Yes, in one, not only in one suttas, in many suttas, Buddha clearly said that whole mass of suffering is nothing but the 5 aggregates of clinging. And when the Buddha understood the 5 aggregates of clinging, he has, on the other hand, he has understood the Four Noble Truths. Because we found that statement in the first noble truth, Sankittena Panchupadanakkhandha dukkha. In short, or in a summarized version, I would tell you that the 5 aggregates of clinging or attachment to 5 aggregates is the suffering. So if you know what 5 aggregates of clinging and aggregates themselves, and if you know the reason why we have attachment for it, and if you know how to remove attachment from 5 aggregates, so you are there. That means you understand the Four Noble Truths. So then we find in the discourse that Buddha explained each factors of the Noble Eightfold Path under the basis of Paticca so that 5 monks come to a very succinct place of understanding, especially the first one, so that the Buddha tells in the same discourse that that Kondanya, the elders of the 5, got the clear knowledge about the Four Noble Truths, The very Pali statement we have there is Yankinchi Samudaya Dhammang Sabbantan Nirodha Dhamma. So the Virajang Vitamalan Dhammachakundapadi, the Kondanya, was able to clear his mind from doubts on the teachings of the Buddha, so that he makes sure that the Buddha attained to full enlightenment through his own experience, so that he cleared his mind from different classes of unwholesomeness, which means he attained to Sotapanna state. The very important statement here in the discourse that the Paticca was clear to Kondanya, Venerable Kondanya, and at the same time, he completed his training up to that level on the Four Noble Truths. So Buddha said this to the other monks according to the Sutta, and not only the 5 bhikkhus looking at or listening to the first discourse according to the sources available here, the devas nearby was listening to it, and devas around the area was listening to it, and many realms of divine beings were alert about the first discourse of the Buddha, so that they were appreciating it from one level to next level, from that level to next level of existence. The message went very quickly, so that the Sutta said everybody appreciated by saying sadhu sadhu. In the Pali Sutta, you have Saddha Manusavesum, from lowest realm of divine beings to the highest. This cry, outcry, or upload or appreciation goes, so that from human realm only 5 persons knew about it, but when we comes to divine existence, many divine beings knew the words of the Buddha, the revelation of the truth by the Buddha, so that it is a remarkable discourse. I think divine beings, many of the divine beings listen to the discourse of the Buddha as a group for the first time, and it is many divine beings. I do not recall any other discourse that many divine beings come and listen to in such numbers. So only the first one, because it happened after many aeons. The Buddhas appear in the world after long period of time, so that their revelation of truth is always with the focal point of the Dhamma, the Four Noble Truths. Each Buddhas come to life with the Four Noble Truths, so that divine beings know that, so that they are taking time and listen to the Dhamma because of that reason. So that is the first discourse of the Buddha, Dhammacakkappavattana, in a very short version, because I know that time is a reason for us to have such a short version, so that many of you can contribute, and important points of the Dhamma in the discourse could be able to discuss later on. So now I would like you to share your Dhamma experience on this discourse, and if you have any salient point that I never addressed, please say it to the group, so that we can take them later on. Yes, Dr. Pial.
Okay.
Nice to see you after a long time.
Yes, I know. So it's interesting, this sutta. The 3 Tiprivatang, the 3 Satyanyana, Krutanyana, Krutanyana, meaning this is the truth, this is the reality, something has to be done. So this is the duty, and the work is completed. Kruta, meaning so there is some work to be done. This is the work. It has to be done. That is the duty, and it is completed. So in others, 3 into 4, you make 12. Now, then this is the wheel of the Dhamma. So Dhamma wheel should have 12 spokes. But most of the spokes I see, Dhamma wheels, I see 8 spokes. The 2 are missing. So no, the reality, the real Dhamma wheel of Dhamma should have 12 spokes. Is complete. Is it? I mean, just a subtle point, but I'm
No,
just
it
saying.
is. It is very important. Many people have doubts why we have 8, and while some shows those 18 and 14 and so forth. I think your point is very, very important, because the Dhamma wheel must be having those 12 things, as the Buddha said in this Four Noble Truths, that he understood 12 ways. I think it is very important. It covers many aspects, because there are no agreement in the in scholastic teaching why these 8 and 18 and sometime it's 24. I have seen one with 24s. So I think what you pointed out here is very important.
So the 8, maybe a lot of people think is a eightfold path. They probably put the Dhamma wheel as eightfold path. But the other important point is, as you said, Sankirtana Panchupadana Dukkha. So in essence, the whole sutra telling dukkha is clinging to the 5 aggregates at the end of the day, right? This is where Sabba Upadipati Nisaggo Tannakkayo Virago Nirodho Nibbana. Sabba Upadi. So the getting attachment like upadi upadana of everything. Everything is like 5 aggregates, nothing beyond the 5 aggregates, right? When we talk about everything, it's a 5 aggregates. Sabba upadi patini saggo. So tannakya viraga. So in other words, so from there to the other end, it's in between work to be done, right? We know the problem, and we have to get out of this. Cut it off completely, the tanha, the craving, which is the main issue.
That's true. I think people knew about suffering into a certain level. Even Channa, the chariot of the Prince Siddhartha, knew that changing of physical body is a suffering, and sicknesses and death and so-called suffering.
Yeah, those are examples
of life
suffering.
Was not that difficult for many people to understand. So the Buddha's significant point is that the 5 aggregates.
Yes.
The Buddha could be able to bring all kinds of suffering that people know into 5 aggregates, and clearly said that this is how suffering dukkha should be explained. So it is therefore, as you said, the revelation of suffering in full form is a remarkable thing in the discovery of the Buddha's truth.
So this is the Achilles tendon. In other words, this is the most important point in this sutra. Clinging, because others are all examples. Getting old is suffering. We all know that. Getting sick is suffering. We all know that. How to get rid of it? No, but getting rid of it is by getting rid of the attachment to the 5 aggregates. That's how we get out of it.
Yeah. And I think the society did not know that the suffering, 5 aggregates are suffering, but they were talking about suffering, physical suffering. They were talking about some part of mental suffering too, but they did not know that the whole society prior to the Buddha did not know that that there are 5 aggregates, and there are the suffering, suffering because of the attachment to 5 aggregates is the cause for everything. So Buddha first revealed it. That's why dukkhaṃ ariya sacchaṃ ubbe ananussutes dhamme. So nobody knew that the 5 aggregates of clinging were suffering. Only the Buddha knew it. So that I think, as you suggested, as you told, the revelation of 5 aggregates of clinging as suffering is a remarkable thing here.
Yeah, and it's not the aggregates which are suffering, but when you cling to the aggregates, only we suffer. Yeah, aggregates do not suffer itself. Aggregates are still there as it is. When you cling, then we suffer.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bhante.
Thank you. So, Chandranina, you raise your hand and take your time, please.
Can you hear me, Venerable?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, we are so glad that you are back. And my point is, now you explained very clearly that we should not go to Kama Sukhalan Yoga or Atta Kilamatana Yoga. But when we are coming to the middle part, isn't it actually we are carrying on our life with our life skills that we got, but Buddha shows that your speech should be like this, your job should be like this, your living should be like this, and all the other the prajna like sila samadhi prajna. So it is the same thing which he showed how to get our senses act not going to those two streams, but to be
Yeah,
careful and to do it with wisdom, isn't it?
that's true. Unless
Yeah.
we become careful about the factors of the Noble Eightfold Path very carefully, we might be going other way around, because we have been, unless we become mindful about the Noble Eightfold Path, we might be developing some unskillfulness. So that there is no guarantee that we could turn our way to unwholesomeness to other way around. So that we must be careful of putting real practice into application. Otherwise, we must be ending in nowhere with craving. So yeah, we may not be in extreme anymore. So because we know about the Buddha, we know about the Dhamma, we have been trying our best to practice. However, if we are not careful about Sila, Samadhi and Panya, the Noble Eightfold Path, we must be collecting supportive conditions for extreme.
Yeah, is it how we become wholesome and unwholesome? Because
Indeed.
we
Indeed.
fully turn to become a wholesome person.
Yeah, that's
The
true.
middle part
Suppose,
means,
yeah. Suppose we are unmindful about the Noble Eightfold Path, so that what we have been doing is something against to it. It means we enjoy sensual pleasures very much, and we are seeking it. And then there is this anger, hatred, ill will arousing in us accordingly, so that we have developed ignorance, which is the total against of knowledge and panya, so that we may be ended up our life with so much attachment, suffering, and we may be believing on those extreme. After that, it happens to some people in the
exactly.
past, and it happening even today. Some people believe on different objects in the society for salvation. How that happened to them? Because they are not in the Noble Eightfold Path.
I think the word samma, just right, just samma is the key. The samma, just enough, just right. But when you go, otherwise Buddha wouldn't bring, it's not the right and wrong in the moral sense, right and wrong. I think the translation say right path, right speech, right meaning not right and wrong in the moral sense, but samma, just enough, just right. Because otherwise you get into the extremes, right? So it's in the middle part, it's just right, just enough, just there, samma sati. So enough sati for you to realize samadhi. So I mean, if you go push sati, samadhi, you can go to micha sati, micha samadhi, and you can go to the wrong path and the wrong wisdom. In other words, wrong realization or dhamma. So that's, I think samma is a key thing. Samma is very difficult to find a correct translation in English, because right view, right and wrong is just like people say, oh, it's a right thing, a wrong thing, but it's not the in the moral sense is right and wrong. It's something more deeper into that. That's what I believe.
Better to use samma.
I think very, very important point is that samma, and I think as Dr. said, there is no agreed one meaning for it in English translation as well as in Sinhala. However, what is meaning samma is hinted very clearly in Mahachattari Sutta. If if Samma means non-attachment, leaving from attachment, and if something, if we do something and our mind is releasing from any sort of problem, they are called Samma. So Samma has been defined in such a way in some discourses, but as you said, there is no particular agreed one meaning. But when we have Samma in front of each part, it has to be very peaceful for one to practice, and not only for the person, the particular person, but it has to be everybody else. So, for example, Sammavacha. Sammavacha means the word would be peaceful for myself and everybody else. And it is meaningful for myself and everybody else too. It should not hurt myself and everybody else too. So it has to be meaningful, peaceful by every means. Then it's called Sammavacha. That leads for one to embrace sort of peaceful state of mind. So very important point is Samma. And when we practice Samma, Ditti, Samma, Sankappa, and so on, we are not going towards any sort of extreme, but we are releasing ourselves from those extreme, as well as craving, whether it is solid or minor or subtle or gross, whatever it is. So I think that is very important point for us here. So is there anyone who add something to it? Please take your time. We can give a couple of minutes for that. I invite you to think about the points of the discourse alone, individually, because it becomes a meditation for you. Arousing Shraddha on the teaching for you to do more does not come just by mere reading or listening to. I personally do this so that the confidence on my training and the Shraddha on the Buddha rose in me very much, because I think about it again and again. And I feel how joyful I am when it happens to me. So that do not wait just with reading, just one reading and so forth, but just think about it. Try to apply each aspect of the Dhamma, not only the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, any discourse you read, so that the joy arises in you. Dhamma, Piti Pamojja come in effect immediately with this training. So the Dhammanupassana could not only be practicing in one way. It has many aspects, right? So you find aggregates in you, whether it is leading to attachment or not, and how you apply. You find sati emerging in you when you do it, and also wisdom. A lot of people ask, Bante, how we figure out wisdom in our training. Simple answer is that wisdom is a quality in your mind, and it could be tested when you have a trouble. When you have a particular disadvantage thought and you're not going to it, you overcome it. So that wisdom is there. So personally, I can figure out those what you call indriya dharma or faculties. But if you have not done that yet, please ponder on these important Dhamma elements individually, alone, so that you could find them, and you could differentiate them in your practice. That is very important. So that the Dhamma, what do you call, Dhamma Piti and Dhammuddacca Titta would come in effect in you if you do that. So that is an invitation for everyone. Do it. Think about the Dhamma. Connect these Dhamma into other aspects. So see how Dhamma web is everywhere in your mind, so that, because some people are not in the positions to analyze Dhamma with this discourse to the other discourse. I have seen that. But anyway, it could be overcome by reflecting the Dhamma alone in the meditation or whatever way, so that you would be reaching to a particular level that you enjoy the Dhamma very much. So if you, that is my kind invitation to you. So I would select another discourse for next week. And if you have any concern on any factor of the first discourse, you're welcome to do inform us, so that we can take a look at it and select a particular discourse. As all of you suggested, all of you talk about 5 aggregates of clinging should be understood clearly in terms of understanding the full scope of suffering. And then your samadhi is there, your effort to overcome suffering is there, mindfulness is being there, developed very much, so that everything come out, so that everybody has to work on 5 aggregates of clinging to differentiate aggregates and also clinging. So that would be the last thought about today's sutta discussion. So that we would meet you next week with the same beautiful Dhamma, and despite the different topics. And I would think that it will be another interesting sutta discussion. So wish you blessings, friends. In 3 days, we have a special poet day. It is the poet day that the Buddha delivered this first discourse to 5 humans and also many living beings. And we are talking about it again and again, either in English Sutta study class or in Sinhala Dhamma sermon, and try your best to be fully awakened to the 4 noble truths and the noble eightfold path, so that the Shraddha on the Buddha and the Dhamma and the Sangha develops very much. And the merits out of those reflections would be huge for you to be physically and mentally healthy for the time being. With that thought in mind, I stop today's Sutta study class. May you all be well, happy and peaceful by the power of these merits. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.